This is Tyler James with Comics Launch, and we are broadcasting live on today's live video presentation. I have a really good one today. This is a topic that when it was first dropped several months ago, that Backerkit was launching their own crowdfunding platform. I was super excited to see how that would develop, and I know a lot of the Comics Launch creators out there are interested in this as well. And so we're going to be talking about the new Backerkit crowdfunding platform with one of the very first creators in the comic space to be jumping on that platform. And so I'm excited to bring on my guest here. My guest today is a former co-publisher of Scout Comics and Entertainment and is the co-CEO of Brink of Reality Productions. He has a background in film and business. He's an experienced editor, writer, and retailer, and some of his comic work includes Steak, Canceled, and The Couch. And I'm excited to welcome here David Byrne to Comics Launch. Welcome, David. How you doing?
Hey, Tyler, thanks for having me. It sounds like I've done more than I felt like when you listed all out like that.
Yeah, you know, sometimes, especially when we've been around in this game, in this world for a little bit, those accolades can pile up, but that's a good thing. We bring a lot of experience to these discussions, and I know you do as well. But I guess the place that we want to start, and the reason I was super excited to talk to you, I mean, I've been meaning to sort of get you on the podcast anyway, because you've been over the past couple of years doing some really awesome things with your launches. And so we'll get into that. But it was especially a no-brainer to have you on the podcast because you have jumped in and launched a Backerkit crowdfunding launch. And this is the first time that I've been able to have a creator that is launching on the Backerkit platform on the Comics Launch podcast. So that's a great first for us. And I'm excited that you were willing to come on the show to talk about that experience.
Yeah, I mean, after listening to you for years and knowing that this is something that really would speak to your listeners, I figured this was probably the best platform to go out there and actually discuss the whole thing. So
yeah, awesome. And I think we're going to dive into the behind the scenes. And I know most creators haven't had the chance to really look at or even seriously consider what moving to Backerkit crowdfunding might mean, or the pros, the cons, etc. And so I think this discussion that we're going to have is going to give them a lot of context and a lot of things to think about. But before we sort of bury the lead, like, tell us about the book and the project that you've launched on Backerkit crowdfunding.
Okay, well, this is my series Canceled. It actually started as a one-shot to the direct market about a down-and-out clown or a down-and-out Mr. Rogers type in the 50s who actually gets fired and replaced by a clown. He gets drunk and tries to destroy the local TV antenna and instead gets electrocuted and sucked into the airwaves, where he proceeds to tell the local children to kill their parents. So it's definitely horror. Then in that first issue, we actually kind of bounce around in time to show that he's still there over the next 4 decades. And this one picks up in Y2K era with basically him finding someone who's being picked on and guiding her to revenge. So it's pretty much straight up horror with, you know, I guess you got a little bit of sci-fi with the clown being in the airwaves.
Yeah. Yeah, and so this is this book has had a little bit of an interesting path, right?
Yes.
Because this is the second version of it, and the first was launched as a big direct market push. Is that right? Can you just give a little background on that, and then why for this next round you decided to go crowdfunding first?
Well, kind of interesting story with how it even got made was I had done a short script that we were going to submit to an anthology years and years ago, and I just kind of shelved it because it never worked out. And then I had an artist who literally messaged me and said, "Hey, do you have anything for me to draw?" He just wanted to practice on sequential art. So I sent it to him, and after the first couple pages, it was the art was so good, I sent it to Joe Schmalke over at Black Caravan, the horror imprint at Scout, and he was like, "If you get this up to 20 pages, we'll publish it." So I was like, "Oh, well, I hadn't even really thought about that. We were just kind of playing around." So I built out the story, and we got it up to 20 pages, and it was very well received. So Initially, it was only going to be a one shot, but I just couldn't not keep going because of people constantly hounding me for the second part.
Yeah, that's always a good sign, and it's a good sign when sometimes these projects sort of develop organically.
Mhm.
Sometimes I think we go in and we have like, oh, it's got to be this, this, and this, and this, and then sometimes the projects that actually come to life are the things that like, oh, people really dug that, or oh, this artist really knocked this out of the park and did more with it than I even thought, and then that can ignite a fire under the writer even more, even if that wasn't a project that was on the back burner. So it's always interesting to hear how these projects do come to life. So all right, let's talk about Backerkit. And I wanted to just, as a little public service announcement for our listeners, and I've talked about this and done specific podcasts on different elements of Backerkit, but for most of our listeners, we want to make sure that they're understanding that now here, 2022 going on 2023, Backerkit is a company, but it is not necessarily a product. It is actually now a company that has 4 core products. It has Backerkit Pledge Manager, it has Backerkit Launch, Backerkit Marketing, and Backerkit Crowdfunding. So these are 4 different products, and you can choose to use one, multiple, or I think any combination, more or less at this point. I'm curious, did you have an experience with Backerkit as a customer consumer of their other products prior to crowdfunding, and what was that experience like?
So I've used Backerkit, the pledge manager, for I want to say 3 campaigns already, and the launch I've used for the last 2. So I did reach out to them about marketing, and at this point they don't do comics for marketing. So I'm very familiar with their products, and I've always had a very good experience. I know it's complicated to set up Backerkit for the pledge manager, as you know, but the actual launch feature is fantastic, because instead of having to go to each one of your previous campaigns and post an update, you literally get them all aggregated into one quick email list, and it's very targeted, and they know what they're getting from that email.
Yeah. And so we have I've had a lot of creators that, once they start getting a couple campaigns under their belt, that Backerkit Launch becomes like the first $99 of marketing that they're interested in spending, because the return on and the ability to just highly target those emails to past customers only is super powerful.
Oh yeah, I mean, if you have one campaign with 30 backers, it's not a good use of your time or money. But once you've established a bit of a fan base, because sometimes someone who backs one campaign doesn't back that second one, they just somehow miss it, and then when you do the third one and they get that email, and as we all know, if you're doing a serialized, you need to be offering all the back issues. So you have people who come back from they may jump from 1 to 3 because they missed 2.
Yeah. And I'm curious, so, you had done a few Kickstarters prior to using Backerkit Pledge Manager, which is the other, and that's sort of like Backerkit Classic, or what most people know Backerkit to be. Even today, it's I think as a company, they're trying to change that, but that is their sort of core Pledge Manager Kickstarter survey replacement. Do you remember what your reasons for switching to Backerkit were, and your sort of and what your experience was in going from the Kickstarter survey to Backerkit, just for Pledge Manager?
Yeah, so the first 2 campaigns were both for the couch, which were very small campaigns, and those I just did through the normal survey process, and they did not have add-ons when I did the first state campaign through Kickstarter, and I had looked into CrowdOx and Backerkit, and I didn't want to pay the extra fees. So I had the brilliant idea of using my Shopify site, giving people, I literally messaged every single person a code that they could go redeem their books on my website. And that's how I actually led to doing my own version of add-ons. And I think we actually raised another, on that campaign, 30 to 40%.
Nice.
In add-ons just through my website, but it was so complicated and time consuming that when the next one came around, I looked into Backerkit and just decided that, that was the best way to manage the add-ons. And then between that campaign and the next one, Kickstarter actually added add-ons. So I still do like to use it because I feel like it's a better way to manage it, and it does drive more towards the add-on.
Yeah, especially as those campaigns get bigger and more complicated. And, I have some scenarios where like products arrive at different times, and there's some products that like, hey, these are going to be shipping directly from a warehouse or something like that. And I know I'm going to be shipping those products like early, and Backerkit makes it so much easier to just segment by product or by certain groups, and then just do that delivery. And what I've found is the bigger the campaigns get, and I know some of your campaigns have really started to get big over on the Kickstarter platform. It becomes a no-brainer, and kind of, yes, the other challenge is the bigger the campaigns are, the more Backerkit costs, but especially as you start to have a backlist and can add those add-ons and upsells, the return seems to be pretty predictable. And I've had a pretty predictable return. Did you, once you moved over to Backerkit, sort of see a pretty predictable return in terms of extra add-ons sold and just ease of on the back end?
Oh yeah, even with the Kickstarter doing the add-ons, because I offer them, people add them on. Obviously, you can import them into Backerkit, but that goes on your total from the Kickstarter campaign. Even with that, and having a lot of people do add-ons with this last campaign, I had another 25% in additional add-ons through Backerkit after that. So, nice. I feel like that's pretty solid.
Yeah, and that was another thing that I think some people had prognosticated, that Kickstarter add-ons would make Backerkit add-ons unnecessary. But the reality that I've found is most people wait at minimum 2 weeks before they send out their surveys on Backerkit. And in some cases, they wait until it's significantly closer to products being ready to ship. Mm-hmm. And what that ends up creating is it's a interaction and another shopping opportunity for your backers who, and it seems like there's always a consistent amount of a certain percentage of backers that, like, when you put an offer in front of them, they almost feel like they have to buy something and they have to get something. And
I had a retailer friend reach out, and he's like, "Hey, I want to do a Jessamy cover," and that was the last campaign. And he was like, "Do you want to offer it to your backers?" So literally, it's only available through the Backerkit, as an add-on. And I think we sold, between the two versions of it, close to 30 copies, which was just a bonus, because then he's going to also sell it through Whatnot and his online platform.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So, with the pre-order store, you can leave that open, which I'll set up the pre-order store and just leave it open until I lock all the orders and I'm going to print, and let people who missed the campaign come on, but they don't get any of the, the stretch goals or any of the fun upgrades.
Yeah. And so this, and the reason I wanted to bring this stuff up, because, obviously we're going to talk about the new crowdfunding platform and make that the focus of this episode. But the reason I wanted to bring this stuff up is because, I've been asked because over the years, there's been a bunch of new options for creators to crowdfund, Kickstarter alternatives, and new companies popping up. And I've been asked for my opinion on them. And in most cases, it's hard for me to justify, even if they do a few things better or address or check a few boxes on the "I wish Kickstarter would change this" checklist. It's been hard to justify moving over to a brand new platform, building things up from scratch. But Backerkit is an example of a company that's in, a really good position, because I feel like they do have a really good reputation for the crowdfunders, the crowdfunding creator community. Like, you have a good relationship with the Backerkit program and trust, and you've done business with them in the past. Most of your backers have done business with them in the past. And so when I heard Backerkit was launching their own crowdfunding, I said, you know what? They actually, if anybody could give Kickstarter a little bit of a run for their money, Backerkit probably would be in the best position to do it, because they already have that brand equity and goodwill with this community. So I'm curious, what was it that made you want to test it out for this next launch?
Well, basically, it's, they had the reputation. You've seen Zoop and Funder and like all these other newer ones, and you're asking people to go somewhere completely new that they don't know anything about and they don't trust. But having most of our backers already familiar with Backerkit, already having logins for the most part, I felt like that transition would be smoother.
Yeah.
And it would be easier for them. They wouldn't be like, oh, I have to go to a whole different site. It's a site they've already been to, that they already have signed up for. And knowing, the large percentage of crowdfunded campaigns through Kickstarter that they do surveys for, they have a very large mailing list. And I think they're supposed to be including these campaigns and newsletters to those people. So hoping to get that further exposure to a large quantity of backers who may not be familiar. But
yeah,
so far, it's been a little tough sledding.
Yeah. So, I mean, we're going to just get into it. And we decided to set this up even before your campaign had started. So I love that you're willing to say, hey, we'll do this. We'll talk about it. And no matter how it goes, we're going to learn some insights in here.
I think I told you last week or the week before, I literally had no idea how this was going to go.
Yeah. And so I guess let's break it down just, well, before we even get into the actual launch, what were some of the key, I guess, differences in terms of the setting up of the project? And did you like, did you reach out to Backerkit before they had sort of opened up, or are they like, can anyone, like, I'm not even sure if you know this, but can anyone launch a project on Backerkit right now, or are they still in a sort of filtering phase? Because they really do not have a lot of volume right now.
Right.
What was that? What did that look like?
I believe they're still vetting people who they're willing to put on, and it is in a beta. So basically, if you saw the initial emails and things they were sending out, they sent something that said sign up if you have any interest in participating. So I just submitted that so I could see what the deal was.
Yeah.
And then they reached out and said, hey, if you want to talk, we'd be interested in letting you do a campaign as one of the betas. And, obviously letting us know, they let me know right away that they're still working out all the bugs. It's a beta. We're basically here to try to break it and see what's wrong and what works, what doesn't. So that's what we've been doing. We started the process, I want to say, back in August. And we decided, like, obviously horror, you kind of want to lean towards doing in October, but I wasn't going to be ready, and I didn't want to compete with literally hundreds of comic horror campaigns on Kickstarter at the same time.
Yeah. And so were there any key differences that you noticed in setting up the campaign? As someone that, I mean, I've always found this, like, and you mentioned it when setting up your Backerkit pledge manager for the first time, like, that's a whole new tool you have to learn. I played around with Indiegogo In Demand and was like, oh, this is, it was like writing left-handed or a little bit with setting up those campaigns versus Kickstarter. Like, anything that jumped out at you was like, oh, this is different, this is easier, this is more difficult in terms of just setting up the basics of the campaign? And did you have any different approach to how you were setting up your campaign with Backerkit versus your standard Kickstarter?
I've had a pretty good template for what I do on Kickstarter. It was a matter of figuring out how to integrate it to this platform. And the big thing is, like, if you see on the left-hand side, those little headers, they're actually hot links that will take you to that spot on the page. So when you are inputting your campaign and you're doing the story part, it's not one giant field like it is on Kickstarter. You have sections, and each one of those headlines you see, you have the ability to toggle where it'll just be a basic font, and it'll actually be on there with a stripe across separating the sections in the body of it. but I chose to do graphics instead to break it up and make it look a little nicer.
Yeah.
So you do have those options. One of the big things is you can see at the top where it says achievements. That's actually stretch goals, where you don't have to necessarily put them on the front page.
Nice.
And you just, you input those. You can, obviously, as you can see, you can upload an image. You can upload images to all of the pledge levels. That's a big difference, but it's pretty easy. When you're editing the story fields, you can actually copy and paste images in. That's a little more intuitive and a lot easier than, every time you upload an image on Kickstarter, you have to click the add image and then upload it. And
Yep.
you can add your links and everything, but that's simple. And it's just like when you do your emails through most of the subscriber services that people use to do emails. It's more like composing one of those.
Okay, so it's potentially easier to like do all your copy in an external document and then port it over by just cutting and pasting.
Yep.
Oh, that's good to know. Yeah.
Yeah, you could create it in Word with your graphics already in there and then just drop it in.
Yeah, and these, this is something that Kickstarter backers have been asking for forever. The images with rewards,
especially when people have dozens of covers.
Yeah, although then you sort of get into the case of, all right, there's dozens of covers and each one is like half a centimeter tall. But
I mean, that was a strategy I like. If you go to some of the bigger campaigns like Polito and those, you go down their tiers, and each cover artist like has their own tier, and it just like scrolls forever and forever.
Yeah,
I just do it by, if it's trade dress, virgin, foil, or metal, and then after the campaign is when you pick. So I don't actually force anybody to pick until they're in their survey what art they're picking anyway, because I may in the middle of the campaign add more.
Yeah.
So instead of switching theirs, they can just pick the cover later.
So then your approach is to sort of have a uniform price for covers.
Yep.
And then but then there's different tiers of covers that they can choose.
Right. You can see it right here.
Yeah, you definitely you have an interesting variant cover strategy, and I'm going to want to get into that in a minute. But I guess we can get into this now, because variant covers, is something that is sometimes a controversial topic with creators. And, me personally, I have never really been a variant hunter. But I also recognize that I am not my own ideal customer, and my lack of interest in collecting every cover known to man notwithstanding, I know that there are plenty of creators that are out there, plenty of backers and collectors out there that do go crazy for options, and thank goodness they are, because it really can make a huge difference in the bottom line of campaigns. So how have you sort of evolved over the years with your variant cover approach? And then what's your sort of strategy approach now? And how do you do it in a way that helps you keep your sanity and doesn't make it a logistical nightmare on the back end? I'm curious what
it is absolutely a logistical nightmare on the back end, because, usually for like, we could use Stake as an example, having like 500 backers, and it's usually like 60 to 70% physical. Probably 20% of those are easy, just send the main cover. Then every single other one is some combination of different random covers. I think on one of the campaigns we figured out we had 44 different versions of the book that I had to sort through and figure out who got what. So yeah. And then, at the end, even like you can't even just go through your normal, okay, here's groups to ship. I could do one group where it was just the regular cover and whether they wanted it signed or they didn't. Then everything else was basically custom. So I'd have to go through each order. And I even hired someone this last time where I would just make stacks and have them do the preliminary packing and just make sure that they kept the sheet that belonged to that person on top. So
and it's amazing how much more time that can add to a campaign. We had the Seas for Cthulhu brand is one of the bigger brands that I have, and it's been one brand that has been around since 2014, and it's the kind of thing where every campaign, every item that we've ever offered, someone's getting at least one of them. And I was able to have maybe 700, like we had over 1,000 orders, maybe 700 of them were in some sort of combination and had packing groups, but there were over 300 just one of one orders, which every one of those orders takes that individual time. So getting some help, obviously, even a little bit.
Oh yeah, well, and like
way.
I've never charged for signatures, and I won't charge for mine. But the interior artist for Steak has moved to the U.S. and she's basically local to me. But she's about an hour and a half away, and I offered it in the last campaign. We didn't charge anybody, and the logistics of getting 800 plus books signed by 3 people, because Joel Rodriguez, the letterer, is in town too. So we offered everybody's signatures, and I was like, I can't do this again because of just how much time it takes. So I actually, I'll do mine for free because all the books are at my office. I can sign anytime. Yeah. That's not a problem for me because I can just sign them as I'm packing them.
Yeah.
But I actually charged this time for Francesca's signatures because it literally takes me an entire day to process and get with her, have her sign them. She's exhausted. I'm exhausted. It's like, it cut the number probably into a third, but people still wanted it, and they were willing to pay to have her autograph on there. So, and I'll just, make it mostly a pass through and give her the money because she's the one who's, working her wrist.
Absolutely. I mean, I think there are a lot of things in a campaign that, when you're talking about just doing it a couple times, or it doesn't seem like it would be that much or even worth offering. But yeah, once you start getting into volume, even things like signing a signature can be that. I remember being at New York Comic Con a couple of years ago, and we had a retailer group that had purchased a special variant cover, and we had both. It was for Sync. We had John Lees and Alex Cormack there, and they wanted John and Alex to sign like all 1,000 copies or something while they were there at the thing, and I can just they're like, cool for the first 10-15 minutes of signing them, but then it was just like the signatures were being like, just swiping, and it's just like they're like,
I did that.
Stop bringing books.
Yeah, I did that to Derek too at MegaCon.
Yeah,
in 2019, I said, hey, can you come over to my booth and sign some of these books you did the cover for? He's like, yeah. And he sits down, and I dropped an entire box of 250 ash cans in front of him. And his eyes they like almost bugged out of their head. I was like, don't worry, I'm going to pay you for every single one of these. And then he was like, okay, we can take as much time as you want.
Yeah. It's, these are little things that you kind of take for granted, but everything adds a little bit of extra time. Okay. So obviously you're going to charge for signatures going forward, especially if it's going to be multiple teams. But in terms of variant covers, like how many, and I guess, I had talked about this in the past, and I know some creators are like, how are people even affording to have all of these different variant covers? And it seems like your strategy has been limited number of cover art, and then variations on what you do with the art in terms of the format, or the foil, or the virgin, or whatever with the art itself. So how is that sort of shaking out on this one?
On this current campaign?
Yeah.
We can use this mix. It's really a mix. We only have 84 backers right now, so it's not a ton of data. A lot of people are doing.
Well, let's just talk about it on the offer first, and then we can talk about what people are responding to. But like, what offer did you put out? It's like we've got.
I mean, my go-to is a trade dress, a virgin or sans trade dress, and then I like to do a foil and a metal. Yeah, the metals were added a couple years ago. That's obviously, as you know, that's the big premium one. Really, the strategy is there. People like to collect the sets. I
Mhm.
did it on the first Stake Presents Jessamy that way, and then when
Yeah.
I was like, man, I don't know if I want to offer foils on the next one, but I was like, I can't offer issues 1 and 2, and that you can get a foil of issue 1 and 2, but then all of a sudden 3 comes out and you can't you can't get the foil of that one. So I was
Yeah.
like, all right, so we need to at least that was the last campaign I completed, was the final issue of that mini. So when I do another Stake campaign, I'm going to reevaluate my cover strategy and the
Mhm.
type we're offering. The only thing we did this last time was offer the acrylics that you and I talked about that a little bit. That was something we experimented with for MegaCon this year, or was it? No, that was for Dallas for a retailer, and it turned out so cool. And they're basically, I wanted to keep them as one of one items, so we did that as a really premium item at 250, and a handful of people actually scooped them up. So
Mm.
I
Yeah.
think
So
if you,
what is an acrylic cover? I don't think we've actually talked about that on the podcast before. What, like, say, yeah, here we go. Your choice, canceled #1 acrylic variant.
mhm.
Yeah, like, what's the process of making an acrylic cover, and how does
Like
that?
the metals, it's just a separate piece that does get added to a finished book.
Mhm.
But in this instance, the what an acrylic is basically, it's a piece of plastic cut to the size of a comic cover, and they can print on the back and the front. So if they print a spot, I don't want to call it spot UV, but they'll do layered spot printing on the front cover. And if you have an image in the back, you actually get depth to it, so it almost looks three-dimensional.
Mm.
So
So,
yeah, the one that's on there, it's the clown's face is on the background, and
mhm.
then there are devices like an iPad, an iPhone on the top part, and they actually printed multiple layers of ink on the different devices. So if you run your hand across it, those devices are physically at different levels on the cover.
Hmm. Really cool. Yeah, so it sounds like you can have some fun with depth, with experimentation on it. Yeah, I've seen acrylic pop up on a few campaigns. Some people are like have offered standees and other things like that.
Mhm.
It's not something that I've beyond like doing a keychain or something here and there for as an extra. It's not something I've really played with yet, but I definitely do see that as sort of a cool high end type of cover. And did I hear you were also looking into wood cover at some
Yes.
point for the stake?
Yeah, and well, there's actually been, I think Mad Cave and Valiant have done wood covers, but they were basically burned. Someone had done like wood etching.
Hmm. Yeah.
But I have a printer who can actually print on the wood and do other fancy things to it. So we're going to experiment with that down the line. We'll see how they turn out. That's the big question. How is it going to actually physically turn out? So there's not many examples in existence. What he was able to show me was like menus they had done for restaurants where they printed on wood.
Yeah. Got a message in coming from YouTube. Soul and Key says, "What is the criteria to launch projects on Backerkit?" Um, did you are you aware of? I mean, we did say they are still in beta right now, and so I don't believe every project that submits is able to go live. Did you have a sense of what they were potentially looking for? Um, I, I,
I
yeah.
think kind of veteran crowdfunders,
Mhm.
people who have done campaigns and shown that they fulfill and that they have an existing backing. Part of my appeal, which hasn't translated, was that I also have a direct market following.
Mhm.
So I was able to, parlay. Look, I've had success on Kickstarter. The book I'm considering launching with you is one that was pretty successful through the direct market, and I think that was basically how I was able to get in there.
Yeah.
So I think it really is a case by case, that they'll evaluate you based on what you've done and what you're considering bringing.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess the short answer is, if you are a first time crowdfunder, as of right now, Backerkit in beta is not the platform for you to be focusing on.
Yeah, and it's definitely not for you if you're a first timer, because
Yeah.
there's no discoverability at this point either.
Yeah, and I think that's an important thing to point out. Right now, or at least as of yesterday at this time when I looked it up, there were 3,006 live projects on the Kickstarter platform and 274 live comic book projects. Right now, there are, looks like, 3, 6, 9, 10. There's a couple more than there were a little while ago, but 10 projects on Backerkit, and David's project and Spike Trotman's projects, I believe, are the only comics projects that are live on Backerkit. So it is a completely different ball game in terms of activity going on there, and focus. And then also, of the projects that are on Kickstarter, or excuse me, are on Backerkit right now, it looks like these two new plushie projects have launched recently, but the rest are game projects.
Yes.
There's and that has been traditionally what their biggest projects have been, as those game projects. All right, so how did you approach being on this new platform in terms of your launch? Obviously, you set a goal of $5,000, which you've raised significantly more than that in the past with your crowdfunding efforts. So it sounds like having not a crazy goal was one of your things. But what else did you sort of do and see as the challenge in terms of approaching launching on this new platform?
The biggest challenge is driving even existing traffic to the platform. I used the launch. I've sent out 3 different emails. Well, I guess 4, because I did the pre, I did a launch day, I did a warning the early bird's about to go away, and then I did a 1 week in. And we haven't seen the same kind of numbers as we did when we did a launch email campaign for the last stake, and even the one before that. So it's not even close. Like, I'm just feeling like they're not wanting to come to a new platform, but
Yeah.
I don't know that for sure. I'm trying I'm basically running the campaign like it was going to be on Kickstarter with, the advertising. I'm doing more posting on social than I usually do. We did some pre-campaign marketing with Backerkit, and the click rates got very high very fast. As far as
the cost per click.
Yeah. So we killed that after a couple $100 just because it wasn't converting. So I don't know the answers to drive the traffic here. I've heard from a couple people that they couldn't find it on Kickstarter. So
Yeah.
they were looking for it on Kickstarter. I've also heard from a couple of creators that wanted to back, that we support each other. We like each other's projects, so we always support the campaigns. And it was, I can't log in, and it's because the Backerkit that you use as a creator, once you've got your email there, you actually can't back this. You have to have a separate email to do this.
Oh, yeah.
Which
That's
Charlie Stickney actually pointed that out to me when he went to follow the campaign pre-launch. He said he couldn't use the one he uses to do surveys. He had to use a whole separate account.
Yeah, that seems like that's problematic, in that the comics community is, creators back each other all the time. And
Yes.
so, like, to have a separate account to be backing, just seems like that's and having worked in software and knowing how, the Googles and the Metas of the world sometimes make it so that, like, you feel like anything that you could do is just super simple to do on the back end. And I know that that's not necessarily the case, but But yeah, that I was thinking that was going to be one of the advantages of Backerkit, is that everybody had accounts and it would be very easy in one click
Mhm.
and just get in there. But that's that's definitely a frustration and probably one of those growing pains that and bugs that
Yes.
you being an early tire kicker here
Yep.
is revealing. So
Well, the last
but
thing you wanna do in sales is create hurdles to closing the deal.
yeah, yeah, especially when, now we live in an era where, um, this most
Mhm.
people backing crowdfunding campaigns are doing it from mobile.
Yep.
And, if but if I don't have a password like already in on an app or something like that, or like tracking it down and discovering it, or figuring it out, or you're on to the next thing. And so yeah, the friction that's caused by just not a smooth checkout process is definitely something that uh, every software, I think,
Yep.
platform has to deal with.
Yep. But I do wanna be clear, like, the platform is it's very nice. I like the layout
Yeah.
for setting up the campaign. The team has been phenomenal to work with. They reviewed my campaign, gave some suggestions. I took some of them. I didn't take others. They've been very supportive. The integration immediately with having launch, the pledge manager, and everything all part of it.
Yeah, yeah. So speak to that. So right now,
Mhm.
um, if you want to use Launch, it's $99. If you want to use the Pledge Manager on the back of another crowdfunding campaign, it's, I believe, 2% of that crowdfunding campaign's raise, and then
It's all part of it here, and that's
right.
that's
Okay. So
the
if
because
you
you have the
use
credit card fees. So
okay, so if you use Backerkit crowdfunding, it automatically turns on Launch for you and Pledge Manager, and the
mhm.
cost is what?
I believe it was 5% plus credit card. So
Okay.
it's basically what you would be paying for just doing Kickstarter.
Okay. Yeah. So launching on this platform, the benefits is that you don't have to pay extra for launch, that extra $99. And then if you wanted to use their pledge manager after the fact, you can you get that included as well. So, that's if you were able to get to the point where your backer kit launches were doing equivalent to Kickstarter launches, that would actually be,
Right.
a good, great perks there. Um, so one of the things I noticed that you're doing um, on your campaign here is you're actually sort of taking advantage of the fact that you're going to have a pledge manager after the fact anyway, and you're not charging for shipping during the campaign. You're talk about like your shipping approach, because I think a lot of creators like they get bogged down by having to say exactly what shipping is months before they're going to be shipping it. And
Mhm.
but it seems like you've taken an approach of just saying, hey, here's generally where you're what you're going to be
Yeah, I mean,
what
because
things are going to charge.
honestly, we don't know
Yeah.
what shipping is gonna cost at the time of shipping. Um, but in general, I actually prefer to bake it in, which is what I've always done on Kickstarter.
Yeah.
This was their recommendation to, um, make it weight-based at checkout
Yeah.
on the survey. So I went with what they wanted to do because 'cause I'm trying to utilize their platform the way they intend it to be used.
Mhm.
And I believe when you check out on this campaign, it actually states it there as well, that you'll be charged shipping in your survey process.
Mm. Okay.
So, I
Yeah,
mean
it's an interesting thing, and I've been dabbling with that when using BackerKit on the back end for international backers on campaigns where there's going to be a lot of add-ons, because I really do find that weight-based shipping is the best way to do it, as opposed to the Kickstarter option, which is like if you're going to offer add-ons, you gotta say what extra like
mhm,
what extra you're going to charge for shipping for each add-on. And so if they stack up, half a dozen add-ons, like those shipping charges can get pretty incredible through no fault of their own, obviously. And especially when we have lightweight things like individual comic books that we're selling, that whole weight does tend to be a better approach. But I do wonder, and this will be interesting, I think, after the campaign is over, if you're able to go back to like some of your loyal Kickstarter backers and just find out, hey, what was your experience? Any reasons why you didn't jump in and support this campaign or weren't able to,
Mhm.
and to see if there was some resistance around that, or something else about Backerkit that made it so that they weren't psyched about jumping on this one.
And so speaking of that kind of, if you click at the top, the community tab there,
Yeah.
they have an option. So you see that right there, actually, they recommended creating this before the campaign started. So they said, create a discussion, and it will actually direct them after they've pledged and ask them these questions to encourage interaction right away.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah, that's cool. So I meant to do this before the campaign, but I will be jumping in and backing this campaign so I can get that backer experience, assuming I can figure out or have to create a new login. But I'm definitely, I'm definitely curious about what the Backerkit experience is. And I know one of the things that Kickstarter backers and creators do with every launch is they try to do cross promotions with other creators that are on the platform, which makes a lot of sense. Unfortunately, in these early days, it's just you and Spike on there right now, and Spike is obviously having a huge launch. She's been an institution in just the comics world for several decades now, and has a
I don't
big
know her
audience.
either. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, but yeah, so there's not a lot of options for like comparable size campaigns for you to reach out to, which
But I
guess is
do
a
think, and
challenge.
I've had offers from friends, and I will utilize them now going forward. I think we can cross platform promote each other. So I would think it's safe to say that anyone I send an update to on here probably has a Kickstarter account.
Yeah.
Now, conversely, if someone were to do a cross promotion with me from a Kickstarter campaign, there's much less likelihood that they're going to leave the platform.
Right.
So it's still worth a shot, and we're still giving this a try. Going to see how it plays out. But I think Spike's numbers are down too. You have to look that she's actually got 2 full graphic novels there.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a, two big printings, and her average pledge level is still quite high. And I know that she's someone that I think left the Kickstarter platform minutes after that their blockchain announcement. I believe she's done a couple of launches on her own, sort of custom built crowdfunding backend, and then has come over to Backerkit to try this out. And I'm sure she has used Backerkit in the past, and was someone that they might have had in mind as one of their power comics users. So. Right. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this shakes out compared to some of her biggest Kickstarter successes. And yeah, it's still early days. And for most creators that on the back end analytics, Kickstarter is still like their biggest referral. Right. And so, to not have that on a platform that's just starting up is definitely being something that you're going to have to contend with. Tom asks, could you comment on how this impacts the relationship between Kickstarter and Backerkit? Are they still on good terms? You have any insight on that?
As far as I know, they're still on good terms at the moment. But right now, I can't imagine Kickstarter is seeing this as much of a threat. So we'll see on that aspect.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, Backerkit's real focus, I think, has been on trying to poach some of the biggest of the biggest on Kickstarter. And so, while in terms of total volume of projects that are on Kickstarter, like, I don't see it having much of an impact. I do wonder though, like, if Backerkit is able to take, let's say, 20% of Kickstarter's top 1%, does that actually affect Kickstarter's bottom line?
Well, if you go down, you can see some of the I think they did get some of the bigger board game companies to
Yeah.
come over, and they did fairly large campaigns, but I still feel like they were lower than what they usually did on Kickstarter.
Yeah, it's possible. These are some big ones here.
They have the
10,
completed ones further down.
10,000 backers. We've got some completed ones down here.
So, I mean, they've had, multi-$100,000 campaigns,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it's all games basically that are doing those numbers.
Right. I gotta look at this one, $170,000 for bird bags. I don't know. There's some weird niches out there.
2 million, there you go.
But yeah, very interesting stuff. So what you're gonna obviously play this one out, and and this is still an all or nothing crowdfunding endeavor, right? So
Correct.
you're still gunning for that $5,000 total in order to have the campaign move forward. The one thing that I'm really missing, which I'm surprised they don't have it here, is that progress bar. I feel like that big progress bar towards funding, is like they have it on their achievements page, which is which is cool. But
initial funding isn't even one of those.
Yeah, it seems like that's something that I'm definitely missing as just a casual user, and I've known those progress bars. Like I create them all the time for like all my stretch goals and things, just because I think it when people see how close they are to a fold up bar, it does compel that action. So that's interesting.
I mean, a few of the other things that jump out immediately are I'm on the Kickstarter app all the time on my phone. I get the notifications when a project's launched, when my friends or people I follow on Kickstarter or back something, I see that. Even, logged in on my phone, I like seeing the messages come in when I've got a new backer. Even though that day one and the last day, it's, your phone is blowing up like crazy. It's still nice to see them come in. I have to basically do what you're doing in F5 on the website to see when I have new backers.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's a young site, even though Backerkit's been around for a while, and they know probably more about crowdfunding than just about everybody, but the folks at Kickstarter. Still a lot of lessons I think to be learned here.
Oh yeah, I'll be giving them feedback, and if it doesn't fund, then we'll go again, probably on Kickstarter.
Right.
Why not?
Right. And you have that option. And I feel like in some ways these platforms are kind of silos, and people are creatures of habit when it comes to their purchasing habits. You have your people that buy books at conventions, people that buy books on Kickstarter, people that are Wednesday warriors, and perhaps we'll have people that are shopping on other crowdfunding platforms as well.
Yep. Well, and to the people who may not have the same avenues that I have to get a book out, do keep in mind I specifically picked this title because I know I have a long tail and other avenues that I can eventually bring this book out. So not having my normal fund on day one success is not the end of the world for this campaign. This book is, I will find a way to get it made and get it out to the public. So I was able to take this risk.
Yeah. So, and you had said to me before that you like testing stuff out, like, and that's kind of part of growth, right? And you're okay with not setting the world on fire with this one, and that you don't have to have all of your eggs in the Backerkit crowdfunding basket.
Right. And if I fail, it will just be chalked up to an experience.
Absolutely. Well, that's a great. I mean, that's always the approach to take with new actions that we take out there. I'm curious, having had several years focused on the direct market with Scout Publishing, and working on not just getting your own titles out there, but also working with other creators and just trying to move books and make an impact and make an impression and get to know retailers and all of that. Like, what are some of the lessons that you've learned in that capacity that maybe you're taking into what you're doing with your own stuff going forward?
I mean, the main thing is that so if you're in the direct market, you're literally trying to sell to the retailers. I think you've probably heard that before. Your customers are different, but you still have everyone. They're still people, so you still have to just interact with everyone, be honest, be genuine. That helps in both the direct market and in crowdfunding. And I've been to Comics Pro where I've sat and done round robins with dozens and dozens of retailers, and when they get to know you, even though I'm there on I was on there on behalf of Scout, we're talking about all of Scout's titles, they also get to know us, and that actually makes them want to support you as a person.
Yeah.
As well. So that's the biggest thing. Having a good product is the first thing you have to do. But I mean, you stated it in your classes. You want people to know and love you. So if they don't like you, they're not going to buy your stuff. So unfortunately, a lot of us, being mostly introverted as creators, have to step out of that comfort zone. And it's the same for the direct market, and it's the same for the direct to consumer, but you just have a different audience that you have to basically cultivate.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't know if for even Comics Tribe, you've probably seen blasting those order codes to your people doesn't really translate to shops buying the books.
No. It's just it's a system that, like, I mean, I'm a comic fan and a comic publisher, but I don't even pre-order like my own like books. Even when I have friends at me, it's just like that's just never something that I did, and it's a hard thing. If it can't just be done in a couple of clicks,
Yeah.
it's so hard to get people to do that.
Yep. So you have to convince the retailers to put it on the shelf, so when they go in on Wednesday, the books are actually there.
Absolutely, and that's its own sort of challenge. What else is up with you in 2023? So this, I mean, obviously we're going to get canceled, funded, and out into the world. But where do you see your focus being creatively and launch wise going into the new year?
So we will try to do a trade paperback for the issues 1 through 3 we just put out, and then that's actually a spin-off to my main series, Stake, that has come out through Scout, through the direct market, and we had one issue on Kickstarter. We will be moving volume 2 to Kickstarter prior to the direct market, so probably sometime in the late spring we'll be doing that. Francesca's going to move over and start doing art on that right away, and then I'll have more canceled.
And so, like, I'm curious because this is something that I'm also thinking about with our series going forward. Like, but I think we're gonna after trying, only with limited success to like simultaneously sync up like our Kickstarter launches with our direct market launches. Comic Stripe may be going towards let's make sure that we're launching products to Kickstarter first in a format that makes the most sense for that at the time. So that might be double issues, that might be, slightly bigger special editions that tell a little bit more of the story and at a little bit more of a price point. And then follow that down the line with monthly, smaller single issue, lower cost releases. But Kickstarter is sort of the debut place, the super fans, the premium, and then the direct market when it makes the most sense, and when the stuff is already completely done. So all we really have to worry about is soliciting it and having it come out like clockwork monthly. Is that sort of the approach that you're trying to take, or what are you trying to do?
So from being on the inside of both versions, I've quickly learned that, especially with indie books, I mean, we're not talking about Marvel, DC. None of us are getting page rates. It's a whole different animal. But I can use my own title, Stake, as an example, and it was kind of eye-opening to me, but it should have been obvious to begin with. A number one, I kickstarted number one. We had to switch artists, so I did new art and put that book out through the direct market with a different artist. I then did 2 through 6 without kickstarting them and put them directly out through the direct market. The diminishing returns on the direct market sales versus if I had kickstarted those issues, I estimate probably cost anywhere from $75,000 to $100,000 in revenue. So
Yeah.
To me at this level where, this is a podcast that's directed at the exact people who, need to hear this and need to understand it, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Crowdfunding puts you directly in touch with your audience. When you go from 1 to 2 on a crowdfunding campaign, you're usually seeing an increase in backers. When you go from 1 to 2 in the direct market, you're seeing a decrease of usually 40 to 60% on almost every single title.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, you're looking at the stake, which you did. Yep. Number 1, 474, number 1 and 2, 495, number 1, 2, and 3, 565. That's a steady increase.
Exactly.
Whereas, the drop from 1 to 2, and it'd be one thing if in the direct market, well, okay, issue 2 drops, but when issue 2 drops, when issue 2 orders come in, you also get, half of your number 1 orders again, mm-hmm. which never happens, right?
Oh yeah, and they're different markets. So I mean, yeah. to me, it also does a disservice to the direct market if you, like, I know you guys have done it where you try to simultaneously release them, mm-hmm. which you would have been better off releasing issues monthly on your series that went to the direct market. Yep. So crowdfunding the entire series, getting it done, then give it a cushion, then taking it to the direct market where you can put it out monthly consistently is actually beneficial in both ways. And you can look at the direct market as a bonus.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've talked about it on this show before. It's like, I think we had a struggle where it was like, you just try so darn hard to make the math work in the direct market. And even, if you have what for most indie books is like a good indie book, it can still be tough to keep it like sustaining and seeing those order drops come in by issue 3 or issue 4. And even if those orders, and this happened for a couple of our books, like, sure, issues 4 and 5 maybe rebounded a little bit and came up from like the low of 2, but it's still not enough to actually, sustain the series in any way where your artists are getting paid what they're worth, where you're able to sort of just keep everything afloat. And so, yeah, I mean, maybe the answer is not to make that the priority.
Did you see Liam Sharp's Twitter feed about Starhenge that just came out? I think they had like 40,000 of issue 1 sell, and by the time that issue 5 numbers came in, he's afraid he's not going to be able to pay himself and his art team to make the book. And that's an image book that's by a well-known and established creator.
Yeah with a great head start. So I mean, I don't see I don't see creators that aren't at the highest upper echelon of creating and who also don't have maybe a backlist catalog that has consistent sellers that are, helping to support and fund new work. Mm-hmm. It's hard to see them continuing to try to, bash their heads against that wall. There's also, there's a pretty major, top 10 publisher right now that, hasn't paid any artists or most of their artists for the last 3 to 5 months. And that news is, if you watch Twitter, you can see the rumbling. And I know at conventions that has started to become the talk of behind the scenes. And so it's hard for me to see like even some more established or bigger name publishers with big talent and impressive marketing and things like that. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if you start seeing some of them turn to crowdfunding quickly to solve a cash flow problem because they
It's already
bank too much on
happening. I mean,
IP.
yeah, it's already happening. You can see some of the bigger publishers are on Kickstarter.
Yeah.
Dynamite's been doing it a while. Boom. Magnetic, that's part of their model.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, all of you out there, just keep focusing on your crowdfunding.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, and I think it's a great approach to try new things consistently, test new things out there, but also, you know, keep doing what's working. And so, like you said, you know, you're learning lessons from this. There probably will be some people that will discover you just by the fact that you're one of the very first projects to launch on Backerkit's
Yeah, I will say
platform. But
of the 84 backers so far, 25 of them are not my previous backers.
interesting.
I
Yeah.
thought that
So
was interesting too. I will admittedly say that some of them are people who followed Canceled because they knew it from the direct market, but some of the names I did not recognize. So they definitely came from somewhere.
very cool. Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. And then the great thing is like, you know, the Kickstarter option's not going anywhere for you as well. So you have that to play with. And I just really appreciate you coming on here and sharing your experience and giving creators some more things to think about when it comes to crowdfunding and their options out there.
Yes, thank you for having me. Sorry we ran so long.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, if I kept you from something. Sorry about that. Tom asked direct market meaning Diamond.
Yes.
Direct market, yeah, meaning comic shops. I mean, even like saying Diamond equals the direct market is now something that like we're in this weird shift where a big portion of business is going through Lunar. I know Scout,
and Penguin Random House, and Universal now has picked up DC, even in the US where they were just Canada up until recently.
Right. So Diamond does not have the same stranglehold on comic shops that it once were, for better or for worse. I know if I was a comic book retailer, the fact of like going through one 400-page catalog a month was daunting enough. Now
that is the rumble I see behind the scenes is, you know, they don't want everything split apart.
Yeah.
It's just more work, but I mean, it is what it is.
It is what it is. So we got to keep adapting to the world, because it ain't gonna stop changing. That's for sure. Well, awesome, David. Besides checking out Canceled 2 over on Backerkit, what's the best way for people to follow your work and keep in touch with what you're doing?
Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. You can actually find me on all of those with the initials DAB282. So that's pretty much the best way to find me. And I'll say again to any of you new crowdfunders out there, the most important thing is make yourself accessible to your backers and your followers. So I'm always here. People ask me questions all the time, and I usually get back to everyone within a couple hours.
That's awesome. Well, thanks, David. I appreciate you sharing your insights from this new platform. I encourage everybody to go check out the Backerkit crowdfunding experience and get a good book while you're there. Canceled 2, #1 from David Byrne. David, thank you for taking the time.
Thanks, Tyler.
And everyone else watching here, thank you so much. We can't wait to see what you all launch next. Take care.